everyone. I guess all of you would know that we'll be starting with the environmental and occupational disorders. There'll be two lectures, okay? And I'll be taking the nutritional diseases. Just hold on for a moment. Okay. Okay. I think most of you have come, so we can start with the lecture. 150 of you have already joined. Or do we wait for a minute or two? Okay, which was the, let's see. Anyone of you can unmute yourself? Is that an option that you have? Can you unmute yourself? I guess not. No. Okay, okay. Fair enough. Okay. Okay, then let's start with the lecture. Okay. Okay. So in this lecture, the learning objectives that we have is that we have to know about protein, calorie, malnutrition and starvation, their pathogenesis and disorders caused by that, and the pathogenesis and of obesity and its consequences. So as far as I know, in the first year of MBBS, you would have learned about the protein, calorie, malnutrition and starvation. Okay, so the protein, energy, malnutrition, this you have been learning from probably your 11th, 12th, and here also in your first year of MBBS, you would have learned about it. The pathogenesis of obesity, this might be new to you, so we will concentrate more on that. Okay, so in this lecture, we will be talking about protein energy malnutrition. In this, we will be discussing marasmus and kwashiorkor, and we will be touching briefly on anorexia nervosa, bulimia. Vitamin and mineral deficiency, I will flip through because I assume that you would all have learned that in biochemistry last year. And then we'll be dealing with obesity. So before I continue, one of you please answer me if you have dealt with vitamin and mineral deficiencies in your biochemistry. Okay, so you have all read this vitamin and mineral deficiency. And what about protein, energy, malnutrition? Kwashiorkor and marasmus, that has also been dealt with. I've got two answers. Protein, energy, malnutrition has been dealt briefly. Okay, here also we will discuss it briefly then. Okay, okay. Thank you, Shashwat. So let's proceed. First, a brief introduction about the diet that we take because we are talking about nutrition. So an adequate diet should provide energy, definitely. Energy should be there because that leads us to do our daily, day-to-day lives and works. They comprise of major three components: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Apart from energy, what all do we require? We cannot just survive on energy. We cannot just survive on only carbs or fats or proteins. Okay, so we require amino acids and fatty acids, which are basically building blocks. Okay, so fatty acids, they give rise to, they and amino acids, they are building blocks of our body. So they will give rise to proteins and fats and what all and what not. And apart from that, apart from making fats and proteins, they are implicated in other metabolic pathways also. And I am assuming that you would all have read about them in your biochemistry previous year. Okay, and apart from that, not providing energy are the smaller components, which are the real heroes. They are the vitamins and minerals. Why do we ask somebody to eat vitamin-rich food? Why do we ask nowadays? Why are we asking anyone to take minerals like zinc? So they may be required in a very small quantity, but they are important for vital metabolic pathways. They are coenzymes. They are hormones. Okay, so they are required in a smaller quantity, but even if that smaller quantity is not provided to the body, there will be deficiency and there will be symptoms. Okay, so what is malnutrition? Mal is abnormal and nutrition. So malnutrition is abnormal nutrition. It can be either primary or secondary. So primary malnutrition is that there is something which is missing from the diet, or the diet is deficient in one particular thing or in general. So there is starvation because of poverty or because of something else. So that would be primary malnutrition. Secondary malnutrition is seen when there is adequate nutrients which are in supply. Okay, the patient has enough food to eat, the person has enough food to eat, but still there is malnutrition. Why? Sorry. So it may result from malabsorption. That is, the patient is eating a lot of food, the patient is eating normally, but the food is not getting assimilated or absorbed in the body. Secondly, there could be impaired nutrient use or storage. Third, there could be excess losses. And fourth, the body need, they may be much more than what the amount of nutrients are being provided. For example, in GI diseases and chronic wasting diseases, acute illnesses, the body is in a catabolic state, so the requirement is much more higher than what we are providing to the person. Okay, so all these things can lead to secondary malnutrition. Now, what are the common causes of malnutrition? Poverty being one of the most common thing. So in the homeless people, also in aged and elderly, because they eat less, they tend to eat less, they might not take care of their health. So they are also a common recipient of malnutrition. Then ignorance, very common for infants, adolescents, pregnant women. They don't know what exactly do they need and how much do they need. So their body requirements would be much more than what is being provided to them. So they are also very strong candidates for having malnutrition. Third is chronic alcoholism. So in alcoholism, what happens? These patients, they will their primary source of calorie is alcohol only. So they don't take other nutrients. So these people, they are also at risk of developing malnutrition. Then happens acute and chronic illnesses in traumas, burns. So in this, both the things happen that the patient can't take food, the intake is restricted and the body requirement also exceeds whatever is being taken. So double things are happening and the patient develops malnutrition. And third is self-imposed dietary restriction, the fad diets that we all know of, keto diet and what all and what not. Okay, so because of that, there could be malnutrition. Now let's come on to protein energy malnutrition, which is the first topic of today. So it is basically, there are clinical syndromes which occur because of inadequate dietary intake of protein and calories. Okay, so that is why the name is protein energy malnutrition or protein calorie malnutrition. So intake is less of both proteins and calories. One can be more, one can be less, but in general, it is both protein and calorie malnutrition, and the intake is inadequate to meet the body's need. And it affects up to 30% of children in low-income countries, and 50% of deaths in infancy and childhood in developing countries is still attributable to protein energy malnutrition, which is actually a very sad state of affairs. So we all know that there are two types, marasmus and Kwashiorkor. Okay, let me ask a question. Okay, Tushar Agarwal. I'm unmuting you. Can I unmute? No. Ishvi Thakur. Are you unmuted now? Are you all unmuted now? I have unmuted you. Am I audible? Not unmuted. Still showing the same message. Are you unmuted or not? Whosoever is unmuted, one person can please speak.
Ma'am,
Not unmuted. Okay. So there seems to be some issue. There are certain people who are showing muted and some are showing unmuted. Okay, let it be. Okay. Okay, then you will have to type the answer. Okay. What is kwashiorkor? What is the more deficient thing, protein or energy in kwashiorkor? Protein. Very good, very good. Marasmus mein both protein, kwashiorkor mainly protein. Okay, so you all know it already. So I am going to flip through this. So we have two types of protein energy malnutrition, marasmus and kwashiorkor. So in marasmus there is excess of calorie. There is severe reduction in calorie intake. So it is that severe that the patient has 60%, more than 60% reduction of body weight. So if the patient's weight was, suppose 10 kg, the child's weight was 10 kg earlier, now it is reduced up to 4 kg. So 60% reduction in body weight has occurred. Most common in the first year of life. And when there is so much of calorie deficiency, the body uses the somatic protein component and subcutaneous fat as a source of energy. Okay, so we know there are two protein components in the body, a somatic protein component, which is comprising of the muscles and all the skeletal tissue, and the visceral protein component, which comprises of the internal organs. Okay, so here the somatic protein component is lost and subcutaneous fat is lost because the body doesn't have the source of energy. Okay, however, the serum albumin levels are usually normal or slightly reduced. So these patients, they usually have growth retardation because there is energy deficiency. Definitely there will be multivitamin deficiency also, there will be anemia also, there will be immunodeficiency also in such cases. Whereas in kwashiorkor, what happens is, as all of you have told, there is more protein deprivation than the reduction in total calories. So it happens in such cases where there is more ignorance. So they will keep on feeding carbohydrates to the child. This is usually seen in 6 months to 3 years of age when the child starts weaning. Okay, so the child starts taking outside food other than the mother's milk. So usko outside food ke naam pe they start feeding the child as the normal roti, dal, sabzi, वही वाली चीजें. तो दाल नहीं खिलाते, बच्चे को रोटी खिलाते रहते हैं या चावल खिलाते रहते हैं, which are only and only carbs. So if you keep on giving the child carbs, his energy requirement is being met, but he doesn't have proteins. So the protein deprivation is much more than the total calories. And this one is more severe form of malnutrition because here the visceral protein component is getting affected. And the visceral protein component is getting affected. The child eventually has hypoalbuminemia. And because of hypoalbuminemia, there is reduced plasma oncotic pressure, which leads to generalized edema. Okay. So what all do we see? Apart from generalized edema, we will see fatty change in the liver. There will be skin lesions, which are like this. इसको हम कहते हैं flaky paint dermatosis. It is, don't you see? It is like flaky paint. कि कहीं से उतर रहा है, कहीं पे है. The skin is alternate dark and there is hyperpigmentation, and desquamation. So it looks like a paint which is about to peel off. Okay, so that is what it's called. In hair, there is overall loss of color, alternating band of light and dark color, like this one. If you can appreciate, there is a band of light color, and when the nutrition improves, the child again has a dark color hair. So that is called a flag sign. The hair are also brittle. There is loss of firm attachment to the scalp. So the hair are very brittle. If you pull them, they'll just come out. Apart from that, because there is a nutritional deficiency, so there will be multivitamin deficiency, there will be anemia, there will be immune deficiency also. If we try to differentiate these two, marasmus is a deficiency of total food intake, and the somatic protein component is more severely impacted. So therefore, the patient will have spindly or very thinned out arms and legs. Serum albumin level is normal or only slightly reduced as compared to kwashiorkor, where serum albumin is very reduced. There is hypoalbuminemia, because of which there is generalized body edema, which we call as anasarca. In kwashiorkor, the deficiency of protein intake is there. Visceral protein component is more severely impacted, which leads to fatty liver also. And there are other characteristic changes in the skin and hair. But both marasmus and kwashiorkor will give rise to stunted growth, anemia, infections, and multiple vitamin deficiency. Okay. So this is what this is from CDC. The picture has been taken from there. So this is what a marasmic child look like. Thinned. The child will not look his or her age. Very thin extremities. Can you appreciate such thin legs? And the head will look unusually larger because the torso or the stature is so small and petite that the head will look unusually larger. On the other hand, the right side, this is a kwashiorkor baby. You can appreciate there is periorbital edema. The child will look okay. The child will not look that sick because the child has edema also. There is protuberant abdomen. Okay, there is, if you see, if you do a radiology, there will be hepatomegaly, there will be fatty liver also. Okay, but this one is more severe because the parents of this child probably will not seek any attention. They will not think that their child is malnourished because they are feeding the child also. Then they may not be feeding right, but they are still feeding the child. Okay. What is secondary primary? What is secondary PEM? So secondary PEM, as I told you, it occurs when there is something wrong with the body, that their nutritional intake is okay, but there is something wrong. So it can occur in chronically ill and hospitalized patients who have increased basal metabolic rate. So these patients have, the metabolic rate is high, so they cannot, they need more energy to be utilized because their body is always in a catabolic state. Second is cachexia, which is called marasmus-like PEM. In this, what happens, it is also because of usually increased BMR or any disease entity which is causing increase in the catabolic state in the body. So this occurs in AIDS and cancer, and there will be depletion of subcutaneous tissue, fat, and muscle wasting. Second is kwashiorkor-like PEM, which is usually seen in severe trauma, burns, and sepsis, where there is where there is loss of proteins. So these patients will also present with edema and decreased serum albumin, like we have seen in kwashiorkor. Okay. We covered about anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa. They may not be that important, but it's important for you to know that what is this and what all can happen in such patients. So anorexia nervosa is self-induced starvation. So usually seen in adolescent females, and but it is not just that the patient has taken a vow not to eat anything. This is not just malnutrition. It has other endocrine abnormalities. Apart from moderate weight loss, there will be severe PEM with endocrine abnormality. So what all does happen? The patient will have amenorrhea. So because the pituitary hypothalamic axis, the GnRH, LH, FSH, that they all go haywire. Then there is decreased bone density because of low estrogen level. Amenorrhea is also because of low estrogen level. This patient will have reduced thyroid hormones, because of which the patient will have cold intolerance, bradycardia, constipation, and dehydration and electrolyte abnormalities can also occur. Okay, because the patient is not eating anything, they're not taking calories, they're not taking proteins, they're not taking vitamins, and everything in culmination, they leads to abnormalities in the endocrine hormones, which leads to amenorrhea, decreased bone density. But the most problematic thing is that there are electrolyte abnormalities which can lead to increased susceptibility to cardiac arrhythmia. And this cardiac arrhythmia can lead to sudden death of the patient. So it may be a healthy female, usually seen in females, so I'm giving an example of female. So it may be a healthy female, but because of arrhythmia, the patient can die. Next is bulimia. So bulimia is somewhat like that, but the mechanism where the patient presents is different. Here the patient will eat food, the patient binges on food literally, the patient eats a lot of food and then they induce vomiting. Okay, so it is their way that they have eaten also, but they are not able to assimilate anything. They will just gag, they will induce vomiting, they will vomit everything out. And it is also, it's seen in men also, it is seen in 1 to 2% of women and 0.1% of men, usually around 20 years of age. And these patients, the women, they also they also present with amenorrhea, but this is seen in less percentage as compared to anorexia nervosa. So these patients can also have amenorrhea. But the weight and gonadotropin levels are usually near normal. In anorexia, the patients are usually cachectic. They are like marasmic children. So they would be thin females, exactly 2 bones females, because they're not eating anything. These bulimic patients, they are usually normal looking, but this is a psychiatric problem. Now, the major medical complications which can occur in this is because these patients induce frequent vomiting, they use laxatives, so there could be electrolyte imbalance like hypokalemia, which can eventually lead to cardiac arrhythmia, which can be fatal. Also, because they are inducing vomiting, there could be pulmonary aspiration of the gastric contents. So when they're inducing vomiting, by chance, what can happen that their vomitus can go into the respiratory system, which can cause pulmonary aspiration, which eventually can also be fatal. And because of excessive pressure with which this vomiting is being induced, there could be esophageal and cardiac rupture, cardia of the stomach. Okay, esophageal and cardiac rupture can also occur. So these are the complications which can occur because of bulimia or anorexia nervosa. Now I'm coming to vitamin deficiency. Any question till now? I'm ready to take questions if there are any questions. Why increased Okay. So I've got some question. Okay. Why smooth muscle come in which protein compartment? See, smooth muscles, usually they come in the somatic compartment. It is the skeletal muscles which come, smooth muscles, they come in the visceral compartment. Somatic mainly it is the skeletal muscles. Okay, a lot of people have asked why is kwashiorkor related to fatty liver? So the body has hypoproteinemia. Okay, there is hypoalbuminemia in the body. So from where else will the body produce proteins or fats and all? So there will be lipoproteins which are being formed in the body. It is formed in the liver. So the liver will try and compensate and make more lipoproteins just to compensate the amount of protein in the body, because you're not taking enough protein. So to compensate that, liver increases in size and there will be fatty change in the liver also. Okay, somebody is asking what is the link between increased laxatives and bulimia. Okay, these patients, they will induce vomiting also. So wo gag karke, they will just put a finger inside their mouth. They will try to they will try to induce vomiting also, and they take laxatives also, that whatever they have eaten वो बिल्कुल लैक्सेटिव के साथ वो निकल जाए. इसलिए तो बुलिमिया में लैक्सेटिव अब्यूज भी काफी कॉमनली इट इज बीन सीन. Any other question or I head forward? ठीक है जी, चलो. Next, vitamin deficiencies. I am going to flip through because I assume that all of you have read about it. Okay. So we all know vitamin A, D, E, K are fat-soluble vitamins. Vitamin C and B complex are water-soluble. Vitamin A, C, E and selenium are antioxidants. Vitamin K and biotin are synthesized by the intestinal flora, and vitamin D with UV, okay, with the help of UV, it is UV light, it is formed in sunlight by the body. Okay, so vitamin A, sources are animal derived, mainly liver, fish, eggs, milk, butter, and in the vegetables, there are yellow and leafy vegetables. It basically maintains normal vision and maintains ocular epithelium lubrication. So in its deficiency, there will be night blindness, impaired vision, xerophthalmia, which is dryness of eyes. There could be Bitot spots, keratomalacia, and eventual blindness can also occur. Just give me a second, please. Then the vitamin A is also implicated in differentiation of epithelial cells. So it is important in the respiratory or GI or any mucosa. So it maintains respiratory epithelium, urothelium, epidermis and all. So its deficiency, it can cause squamous metaplasia, which predisposes to pulmonary infections or follicular or papular dermatosis. Some skin lesions can also occur. Then it enhances immunity to infections. So, and the carotenoids are also antioxidants. So, in its deficiency, there could be immune deficiency, especially the mucosal immune deficiency can be there. Immune deficiency, which can lead to increase in diarrheas and pneumonias. Okay. Then vitamin A deficiency, the same thing in eye. This is all taken from Robbins. So the normal epithelium can undergo squamous metaplasia. Okay, the metaplasia can eventually lead to cancer also, and in eye it can lead to keratomalacia, corneal ulcer, Bitot spot. So these are the Bitot spots. Vitamin A toxicity. It is called polar bear's liver. By polar bear's liver, because the people who used to eat polar bear's liver, they develop vitamin A toxicity because that is abundant amount of vitamin A. The patient presents with headache, vomiting, stupor. Increased intracranial pressure eventually can lead to death also. In chronic toxicity, there would be weight loss, nausea, vomiting, dry lips, bone and joint pain, and increased fracture also. Increased fractures also due to stimulation of osteoclasts. Okay, so osteoclasts are the bone resorbing cells, they are the joint cells, and they will lead to increase in the because they are there, so they will cause increased bone resorption, that is eating up of bone, and that will cause eventually fractures. Congenital malformation can also occur. Synthetic retinoids, which are taken for acne. A lot of you might have taken isotretinoin. You would have applied it on the skin or taken it orally for the treatment of acne. It is contraindicated during pregnancy because they can cause CNS, cardiac, and craniofacial defects. Carotenemia is also one of the things. It is when there is increased vitamin A precursors due to eating of too many carrots or vitamin A pills. So this is not associated with toxicity. It just leads to orange colored skin or orange colored skin of the patient. So how do you differentiate it? It is actually yellowish orange. So people might confuse it with jaundice. But in this case, in carotenemia, the sclera is white as compared to jaundice, where the sclera is also yellow in color. Vitamin D, I think I'll not go much in detail. I'll just tell you very briefly about it because you're going to read about it in Bone Wala chapter also. Okay, so we'll not go much in detail. And I assume that all of you know the vitamin D metabolism. So that's why I'll go a bit fast. Okay. So 1,25-dihydroxycholecalciferol is the active form of vitamin D, which is synthesized from kidney. And it stimulates intestinal absorption of calcium and phosphate. It collaborates with parathormone in mobilization of calcium from bone, and it stimulates the parathormone dependent resorption of calcium in kidney. Deficiency leads to rickets and osteomalacia. I think let's come here. So vitamin D, when it has come either from the diet or it is formed in the body, then it gets 25 hydroxylase in the kidney, in the liver, and then 125-dihydroxycholecalciferol, which is the active form in the kidney. Now this, what it does is, it stimulates the osteoblasts. Okay, it stimulates the osteoblasts to form osteoclasts. So that will lead to increased calcium resorption. That is, it will release calcium from the bone into the blood. That is why it maintains the calcium and phosphate levels. Also, what it does is, it inhibits parathormone to do all this. Then it will increase the intestinal absorption of calcium and phosphate, and eventually it leads to the maintained calcium and phosphorus levels in the body. So when we have calcium deficiency, we have vitamin D deficiency. Okay, there is deficiency. So calcium and phosphate absorption from the intestine is reduced. Okay, so the parathormone is stimulated. So parathormone will stimulate, and it will cause more calcium resorption from the bones. So there would be weakening of bones. Just to maintain the calcium levels in the body, it will cause calcium mobilization from the bones into the blood. Okay, so that will eventually lead to poor bone mineralization, which is the pathology that we see in vitamin D deficiency. Okay, so what happens? This is the normal epiphyseal line, and this is the enchondral ossification which takes place. Here in rachitic bone, which is rickets, which happens. So this happens in a growing skeleton. In a kid, this will happen. So अब इसका growth plate अभी तक close हुआ नहीं है. So enchondral ossification में पहले क्या होता है? पहले cartilage बनता है. Cartilage के ऊपर bone का mineral आता है, and that becomes ossified. Here we don't have calcium and phosphate in the body enough to form a bone. तो cartilage तो बनता रहेगा. So आपकी ये proliferation and disorganization of cartilage तो बनती रहेगी, but it is not getting ossified. Okay, so it is not getting ossified, so you have weak and soft bones which are eventually amenable to deformities. So that is what happens in rickets. Vitamin D toxicity, it occurs because of prolonged exposure to normal, it occurs because of prolonged intake of vitamin D supplementation. Usually, excess sunlight does not produce excess of vitamin D. It usually occurs because of megadose of orally administered or IV taken vitamins. In children, it can cause metastatic calcification of soft tissues, and in adults, there could be bone pain and hypercalcemia. The toxic potential is great because these are fat-soluble vitamins. They will go and accumulate in the body. So, since the toxic potential is great, it is in large doses. Vitamin D is used as potential rodenticide. तो घर में चूहे हो, उनको आप vitamin D खिला दो, ज़्यादा खिलाना, वरना strong हो जाएंगे कम डोज में. Okay, next is vitamin C, ascorbic acid, which everybody is taking these days. तो इसका काम हम सबको पता है. It is an antioxidant. It causes hydroxylation of procollagen and absorption of iron and copper. Deficiency causes impaired synthesis of collagen. So bones and blood vessels, they are the ones which get affected. So vitamin C deficiency causes scurvy in growing children. In adults, it can cause hemorrhagic diathesis. There could be inadequate synthesis of osteoid, cartilaginous overgrowth, which causes widening of epiphysis, bowing of legs, abnormal depression of the sternum, impaired wound healing, and skin lesions can also occur. I'm going very fast on this because I assume that all of you know about this. Everything of this is given in the textbooks. So vitamin C deficiency, because collagen is poor and blood vessels are the ones which are getting affected. So you will have bleeding of gums. In skin, there could be petechiae. In joints and periosteum in joints, there could be poor wound healing. Okay. And other effects are inadequate synthesis of bone and impaired wound healing. Okay. So this is a list which is being given in Robbins, and I've taken that table from Robbins only. So you know that these vitamins are important. So vitamin B1 deficiency, for example, beriberi, Wernicke syndrome, Korsakoff syndrome. Who's going to answer me? Vitamin B1 deficiency कौन से patients में, which set of patients do vitamin B1 deficiency commonly occurs in? जल्दी से. Very good, Sheetal. Alcoholic. Very good. So alcoholics, they have very, very good. All of you, thank you so much. Alcoholics, they have very high chances of developing vitamin B1 deficiency. So they can have dry and wet beriberi. Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome, in which there is CNS implications, they also occur. Okay, vitamin B12 deficiency. All of you would have heard it causes megaloblastic anemia, it causes pernicious anemia. There could be degeneration of posterolateral spinal cord tracts, which leads to sensory neuropathies. Folate deficiency also causes megaloblastic anemias. So these things are not something which are very far flung कि हम books में पढ़ते हैं. We see megaloblastic anemias almost every day. Okay, it is not that uncommon. Okay, and vitamin B12 deficiency commonly कौन से dietary restrictions में होती है, कौन से type के eaters में होती है vitamin B12 deficiency? Vegetarians, vegans and vegetarians, they have, even vegetarians, not just vegans, vegans and vegetarians both have vitamin B12 deficiency. Okay, good. Chalo. These are the trace elements. Zinc की deficiency can cause acrodermatitis enteropathica. It can cause anorexia and diarrhea. So children who have diarrhea, they are specifically given zinc supplements. Okay. Iron deficiency, I hope all of you know, hypochromic microcytic anemia, most common type of anemia you would encounter. And iodine deficiency causes goiter and hypothyroidism. You should have an idea about these vitamins and minerals deficiencies. Okay. Okay, now let's come on to the new topic for today, which is obesity. Okay, you got a question on this in your theory exam. So it is an important part. Okay, so what is obesity? It is defined as an accumulation of adipose tissue that is of sufficient magnitude to impair health. Okay, so that much of adipose tissue is there in the body that it is impairing health. So I hope all of you know what is a body mass index. It is a index which is calculated by measuring weight in kg divided by height in meter square. In meter, uska square kar dete hain. So the normal is 18.5 to 24.9 kilogram per meter square. Above 24.9, that is 25 to 29.9 kg per meter square is considered overweight, and obesity is when BMI is more than 30 kg per meter square. Okay, so this is the definition of obesity when the BMI is more than 30 kg per meter square. So it is a global pandemic, we know, because of sedentary lifestyle, the kind of food that we eat, high calorie food, fast food, soft drinks, everything. It leads to increased calorie intake in the body. So here in obesity, food-derived energy chronically exceeds the expenditures. That is why this energy in the form of fats keep on storing in our body. So it is not just what you see. It is not just that you're taking excess food and that is why it is getting accumulated in the body. It has a neurohumoral mechanisms. Okay. So you have a center in the hypothalamus which will trigger a metabolic response. It is not, see, now you can say it is not implicated. It is not up to me कि मैं ज़्यादा खाता हूँ या मैं ज़्यादा खाती हूँ जिसकी वजह से मैं मोटा हो गया हूँ. It is because your body is making you do that because of certain influences. So these hypothalamic centers, they respond to genetic factors, nutritional. So nutritional is what is in your need. It is in your hand. कि nutrition तुमने क्या लिया? But there are genetic factors also. There are environmental factors also. There are psychological stimulus also. So all these factors, they send signals to the hypothalamus in the brain. Okay. The hypothalamus, it responds and it triggers a metabolic response. Okay. Now the hypothalamus is telling you if you have to eat more or if you have to eat less, if your body should produce more energy or your body should lie quietly. ये सब hypothalamus का center है, ठीक है? So you can stop blaming yourself. Okay, because I'm eating more, that's why I'm gaining weight. So it is just one of the factors. Your nutritional factor is just one of the factors which is leading to obesity or overweight. Okay, genetic plays a very important role, and it actually is a interaction between multiple factors, not just one factor. So here we have the whole circuit. We have an afferent system. You understand what is afferent? That is, they are taking signals to the central area. So we have an afferent system where we have adipocytes, which are the energy stores. They release some hormones. So this might sound something new to you, but fat cells or adipocytes, they also release some hormones like leptin. I will just talk about them. I'm just giving you an overview here. So they release something called leptin, which are adiposity signals. So these are the ones जो कि कहते हैं भाई और बनाओ और फैट बनाओ और फैट बनाओ. तो जो बोलता है और फैट बनाओ उसकी वजह से तो ये हो जाता है ना कि your body wants to create more fat. Okay, so there are different afferent systems. So there would be leptin, which is produced by our body. Then there would be insulin, which is produced by pancreatic beta cells. Stomach produces a thing called ghrelin. Then intestine produces a substance called peptide YY. Okay, now depending on what kind of signal is this, it can activate the anabolic circuit or catabolic circuit. So anabolic circuits are the ones which promote energy storage. They basically promote your body to store energy, whereas the catabolic circuits are the ones which promote your body to use up more energy. So they they will stimulate energy expenditure, and the anabolic ones would be the one they will stimulate food intake. Okay, so in body normally all these things are in a balance. So the food intake and energy expenditure, they are in a balance. So this is the efferent system, and this efferent system, it ultimately regulates the afferent system. So whatever is your system going in towards, if it is more going towards energy expenditure, it will regulate, it will stimulate some of these hormones to cause more anabolic circuits and more food intake. Okay, so this is how this cycle goes on. So the afferent signals are leptin and adiponectin, which are the hormones produced by adipose tissue. So adipose tissue is not just a blind tissue जो कि ऐसे आराम से fat लेके बैठा हुआ है. It also has some hormonal action. Okay. Then insulin, you all know, produced by the beta cell of pancreas. Then ghrelin by stomach, and peptide YY, which is produced from the intestine, ileum, and colon. So in the signal, hypothalamus is the central melanocortin system. And the efferent pathway is the feeding behavior and energy expenditure. So feeding behavior तो चलो body ने आपको बता दिया, तुम्हें खाने, भूख लग रही है, तुम्हें खाना है. Energy expenditure कैसे आता है? It is regulated by the thyroid hormone and the autonomic pathway. So they would increase and decrease your basal metabolic rate according to its need. ठीक है? So if we come to the hypothalamus, then there are two types of neurons that we have. We have POMC or pro-opiomelanocortin and CART, cocaine and amphetamine regulated transcript neurons. Everything is given in the textbook. I'm just referring to them as POMC and CART neurons. Okay. So these neurons, they are anorexigenic. Okay. So इससे anorexigenic मतलब कि anorexia वाली feeling आती है person को. That means the person feels satiety. Okay, so if something is there in the body, some of the afferent signal is stimulating the POMC and CART neurons, so the patient will feel full, satiety. Okay, so how does that do? How does these kind of neurons do that? They produce the alpha MSH, the melanocyte stimulating hormone, and they also activate melanocortin receptor 3 and 4. Okay. इनको करने के बाद स्टिमुलेशन होता है थायराइड स्टिमुलेटिंग हार्मोन का, कॉर्टिकोट्रोपिक रिलीजिंग हार्मोन का, which will eventually lead to increased basal metabolic rate and they will cause weight loss. Okay, so these are anorexigenic. They will cause reduced food intake and they will stimulate certain thyroid and corticotropic hormones to increase the BMR to eventually cause increased weight loss. So these POMC and CART neurons, they are what? They are the catabolic arm of this thing, this hypothalamic circuit. So this is the catabolic. These were the catabolic circuits. I'll just talk about them more in detail. But for now, it is the thing. The other ones are the neurons containing NPY, neuropeptide Y, and agouti-related peptide. So NPY and AGRP neurons जो है, they are exactly opposite to the POMC and CART ones. Okay, so these are the ones जो कि कह रहे हैं भैया खाना खाओ. So they promote food intake. That means they have orexigenic effect, and they also stimulate weight gain. How do they do that? The activation of they stimulate this receptor Y115 receptor in the secondary neurons, और इनकी वजह से melanin concentrating hormones and orexin. These are the two ones which increase. So you have MSH and you have orexin, which are getting stimulated, which stimulates the appetite. Whereas in POMC and CART ones, you also had alpha MSH and melanocortin, but unka function was different. Okay, with the same intermediary, depending on कि वो कौन से second order neuron को stimulate करता है, the action can be different. Okay, so for now, POMC and CART are for weight loss. तो वो खाना भी anorexigenic होंगे. They would stimulate weight loss also. Whereas the NPY and AGRP, they are the ones which will promote food intake. They are orexigenic and they will stimulate the weight gain also. Okay. Okay. So अब आ जाते हैं, once we have seen the brief overview of all, let's talk about these afferent signals. We have leptin, which is released from the fat cell. So leptin कहाँ से आता है? Greek word है leptos, which is lepto means thin. तो leptin करता है thin. Leptin makes people thin. Okay, leptin का basic intention is to make people thin. If people become thin or not, that's a different story altogether. So leptin, it causes secretion. Its secretion is stimulated when fat stores are abundant. बॉडी को लगता है भैया बहुत सारा फैट हो गया, अब और फैट नहीं चाहिए अपने को, तो हम लेप्टिन स्टिमुलेट करा देते हैं. सो लेप्टिन ने क्या किया? लेप्टिन विल स्टिमुलेट द POMC and fat neurons which are anorexigenic, okay, and it will inhibit the NPY and AGRP neurons. It also stimulates physical activity, heat production, and energy expenditure. All of these things which lead to increased energy expenditure. This leptin also acts as a pro-inflammatory cytokine and participates in the regulation of hematopoiesis and lymphopoiesis. That is just a secondary function. Whereas, अब आपको ये पता है, when the fat stores are abundant, leptin increases. Okay, but when we have inadequate fat stores, the leptin volume decreases. Okay. Another important thing, if there is a loss of function mutation in the leptin system, so there is early onset severe obesity. Although this is a rare cause, a genetic cause of severe obesity, but this can theoretically occur. Okay, so you should know about that. Second is adiponectin, which is also produced by fat cell. It is also known as fat burning molecule and the guardian angel against obesity. What a nice name. So it directs fatty acids to muscles for their oxidation. So it induces fatty acid oxidation and it decreases the influx of fatty acid to the liver, and the total hepatic triglyceride content also it decreases. So it basically works at this visceral level. That is what it is doing. So, if I talk about gut hormones, we've talked about the hormones which are released from the adipocytes. Now, if we talk about gut hormones, they work short term. The adipocyte hormones like leptin, they used to work long term. These gut hormones, they work short term. They are short term meal initiators and terminators. मतलब कि ये तुम्हें बताएंगे अभी भूख लग रही है और अभी बस पेट भर गया, खाना नहीं है. Okay, so they are what? Ghrelin, PYY, pancreatic polypeptide, insulin, and amylin. So ghrelin is produced by stomach, and it is the only known gut hormone that increases food intake. So it has an orexigenic effect. It stimulates the NPY, AGRP neurons, and it increases the food intake. So how does that do? How does it do that? Its level rises before meals. Immediately before meals, the level will rise. तो फिर आपको orexigenic, आपको food intake करने की craving होगी, आपको भूख लगेगी, ठीक है? And 1 to 2 hours after eating, the level will fall down. भाई अब भूख नहीं लग रही है. Okay. Postprandial suppression. It is attenuated in obese people. Okay. Postprandial suppression का मतलब क्या है? खाना खाने के बाद after 1 or 2 hours, it is said that ghrelin levels reduces, so you don't feel hungry or you don't feel the need to eat anymore. But in obese people, this can be attenuated. This response can be attenuated. So these people do not sense what their body is trying. They don't sense the feeling of satiety. So they will keep on eating because they will still be hungry. So that will contribute to overeating. So this is what the final mechanism is like. We have leptin from the adipose tissue, which will stimulate the POMC neurons, and it will inhibit the NPY AGRP neurons. Okay, these POMC neurons, they are catabolic. With the help of alpha MSH and MC3/4 receptor, it will stimulate the endocrine and autonomic system with the help of thyroid hormones and corticotropic hormones, and it will stimulate the energy consumption. On the other hand, ghrelin, it stimulates the NPY and AGRP neurons. It is an anabolic pathway. With the help of NPY and these receptors, it will cause behavioral changes and stimulate the food intake. The peptide YY, it doesn't stimulate anything. It only inhibits the NPY neurons. Okay, so anabolic inhibit कर दिया तो simultaneously catabolic लगता है कि उसका पलड़ा भारी होगा, so that will be more prominent. Okay, so that is why with the help of all these hormones, you have an balance between the food intake and energy consumption, which our body tries to maintain at certain level, at the same homeostasis, whatever it wants to do. Okay. Now coming on to the last topic of today, which is the complications of obesity. Okay. Obesity is not just that there is excess of fat in the body. There are other things which can occur because of obesity. In GIT, it can lead to gallstones. It can cause pancreatitis. There could be abdominal hernia. There could be fatty liver disease, not just related to alcoholism. There could be non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, जिसको कहते हैं NASH, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. And it can also cause gastroesophageal reflux disease. You might have heard those people who are excessively obese. They're always complaining that acidity ho rahi hai. And it's because of obesity it is leading to this. Then there could be metabolic syndrome, metabolic abnormalities. There could be metabolic syndrome. There could be insulin resistance, impaired glucose tolerance, type 2 diabetes can occur, polycystic ovarian syndrome can occur. In cardiovascular system, hypertension, coronary artery disease, obesity is a known risk factor of all these things. In respiratory system, there is abnormal pulmonary function, obstructive sleep apnea. Obstructive sleep apnea means when the patient is sleeping. Because of their weight, there are times when he is not able to take respiration, and then the patient goes into apnea and just gets up from the sleep. Also, there is one thing called obesity hypoventilation syndrome, which is called the Pickwickian syndrome. It is from Charles Dickens' novel Pickwickian's Papers or something, where there was a lad who was obese and he was always sleeping. So it is from that. So this also can occur, obesity hypoventilation syndrome. Then in musculoskeletal, osteoarthritis can occur. The patient is so obese, the bones can't take the weight. So there would be arthritis. And genitourinary system, there could be urinary stress incontinence. Then there could be some cancers also which can develop because of obesity, like esophageal, colon, rectum, gallbladder, prostate, breast cancer, endometrium, cervix, cervical and kidney. Okay, all of these can occur. 4% of cancers of men and 7% in women were attributed to they were attributable to obesity in a study. Okay. Now, how does that occur? How does obesity itself can lead to cancers? So what happens? There is excess body weight that leads to insulin resistance. So can anybody tell me what is insulin resistance? Last question of the day. What is insulin resistance? No answer? So this, don't know or no answer? There is enough insulin? Okay, good. Okay. Insulin receptors are not responding to insulin? Okay, good. All of you. Thank you so much. So this happens in type 2 diabetes, that insulin level is normal or high, but the body is not responding to that insulin. So the receptors are like insensitive. So if the insulin receptors are insensitive, or there is insulin resistance, that will lead to hyperinsulinemia, right? So if there is hyperinsulinemia, it leads to increased insulin-like growth factor. Okay, so insulin-like growth factor is there. Uske jo binding proteins hai, unka level might not be able to compete with the insulin-like growth factor कि वो इतना ज़्यादा है. Okay, so insulin-like growth factor, insulin-like growth factors is increased, and you all must be knowing that it is a mitogenic factor, that it stimulates cell growth. Insulin and insulin-like growth factor that will stimulate cell proliferation and reduce the cell apoptosis. So this increased cell proliferation will cause increased chances of cancer. So just simplifying things, insulin resistance leads to hyperinsulinemia, and it increases the insulin-like growth factor, which is a mitogen, that is, it stimulates the cell proliferation, and it leads through this PI3-AKT pathway, it causes growth stimulation. So whenever there is growth stimulation, there are more chances of acquiring mutations and getting into a cancerous stage. Abhi tum logon ne neoplasia ka exam diya, I hope you know that. Then obesity has effects on steroid hormones also that regulate cell growth. Okay, especially for breast and uterus, it is important that obesity has a role. So that is one of the risk factors for development of CA breast and CA endometrium. Also, obesity causes a chronic pro-inflammatory state in the body, and that also can be carcinogenic. Okay, we all know that chronic inflammation can be carcinogenic in certain cases. Okay, so this was all. Any questions? I'm happy to answer.